9 out of every like 10 people I meet in my courses are horrified to work with the ancestors, not because they're scared of spirits, but because they're nervous that they're going to do something wrong. So I'm going to give you some really easy do's and don'ts when it comes to working with the ancestors to make your transition into getting to know them and just your generational healing journey just so much easier. So let's start with the do's. One of the things that you do want to do is be respectful. A lot of people think that because the ancestors have passed on, that they don't deserve the same reverence and respect as like a physical person in front of you. That is not the case. That is a very colonized way of thinking. So we're going to decolonize that way of thinking, and just remember that regardless of if it's your ancestors, spirit, an animal, a plant, like everything on the earth and in the ethers deserves respect. So treat your ancestors with respect when you are approaching them and when you are setting up your altars and leaving things for them. And just remember your like please and thank yous, right? Like I always think of this as if my ancestor were still alive and they came into my house, like how would I want to greet them? How would I want them to feel? How would I make them a plate of food? I would do it with love and tenderness and care. And I think about, you know, taking care of my own grandparents, you know, before they left the earthly realm, like how much love and attention I was giving them. I am going to do the same for all of my altar work. Like that energy should not change. And, you know, saying thank you for whatever gifts they leave you, for the change that they leave you, for the divine intervention that they step in and help you with, or guide you away from people who you shouldn't be around, right? Like always treat them as your family, because they truly are. Even if you're still getting to know them, or maybe it's an ancestor you haven't met, they are usually there because they love you unconditionally. And so just be nice. Just be nice to them. Another one is keep your space clean. This is a really big one. And I can usually pick up on someone's dirty altar when I'm like talking to them, even virtually. It's a very chaotic energy. So I invite you to have a regular schedule for yourself to be able to clean your altar where you give your offerings. Or if you have it on a shelf, or if you have it in a garden, like everybody has their ancestor space in different places. Make sure that you are maintaining that space and keeping it nice and beautiful. And, you know, someone asked this question, in the session recently, and you know, I was like, again, like think about your grandparents or like someone you love being in your space. Would you allow them to sit in filth? Like at the end of the day, no, you would not. So don't do it to your ancestors, right? So make sure you are cleaning it down. Make sure that, like, you know, if you work with an altar cloth, you have a clean white cloth out, you got clean white candles. Like, please be respectful in that way as well, because your physical hygiene also like reflects your spiritual hygiene as well. So dirty altar, not so clean energy, low frequency, right? Like that is not the space that you want to have your ancestors enter, and they'll likely stay away more because they're like, why would we even come into that space? It doesn't even feel welcoming, right? When you are of that open, loving, clean, grounded space, they're gonna flow to you more easily. And I always see people, and I always hear people say like, I haven't been able to connect with them, and I'm like, sis, I can see your altar energetically. Get it together. So that's something to also remember. Another thing that I would also do is, if you are someone who's been a medium for a really long time, or you've been working with your ancestors, or you work with the spiritual realm a lot, I would actually set energetic boundaries, because your case is going to be very different than someone who's just starting out. And we go over like how to create a soul contract with your spirit team and your ancestors, that kind of list out how you prefer to be communicated, because that's actually going to help your ancestors communicate with you more, because a lot of the times they're waiting on the sidelines, not knowing how to approach you, because they they don't know what's going to scare you and what's not going to scare you, and they'll just try things, like they'll knock something over, or they'll keep appearing in your dreams, or they'll just like show up in front of you and then disappear, or you know, like they don't really know what it is that's going to be most comfortable for you. So creating that soul contract or speaking aloud to them and making sure that you're being consistent with your communication is gonna help set boundaries, so they know what works best for you and they can tell you what works best for them. So having a really good and open stream of communication. So in terms of the don'ts, one of the things that I do want to mention is don't assume that everyone's altar work looks the same. I see a lot of people get super excited about their ancestor work, and then they try and go talk to other people and like do all these things. But every single culture is different, and every single person is different, and everyone's energy is different. So the way like two of my clients might talk to their ancestors is not going to be how like everybody else talks to their ancestors. So I invite you to really find what resonates for you in this phase of your life, and it'll probably evolve over time. And just be open to like experiencing that journey in a different way, and realizing also that your ancestors, because you're gonna start having ancestors from all sorts of lineages come to you, ones that you don't even know about. Don't assume that you're gonna work with all of your ancestors the same. You might have indigenous ancestors that prefer to be worked with very differently than, you know, ancestors from a different part of the world or from a different lifetime, right? Like they're all completely different. So really be, again, as open as possible and flexible, and just honor your own practice and not really worry like what's going on in someone else's practices. So again, just like don't assume that everything is going to be the same, because it's not, and it'll make your journey a lot more hard to like enjoy. Another thing is also don't assume that your ancestors are going to answer you. This is a big one. And I sometimes get people come to me if I'm delivering ancestor messages, and they'll be like, can you tell them to blah blah, like all these things, and I'm like, well, they don't want to answer that. You know, so it's like, don't assume that just because you've made a request to your ancestors means that they are obligated to do it by any means. That's like going out into the world and just assuming that your privilege means that you get access to everything, right? Sound really familiar? So let's decolonize that way of thinking and remember that the ancestors are not owned by you, and they have their own life, and they have their own energy, and they have their own things that they do on the other side of the realm. And so if they don't want to address that issue, they're not going to address the issue for it. Stop asking, right? So be, again, respectful to your ancestors, and just remember that this journey is going to be new for you and for many other people. And it's also an amazing time to connect with your ancestors, because this is the thinnest the veil has been in all aspects. Like there's so many deities that are literally roaming the earth right now in a ridiculous amount. So honor this journey and have as much fun as you want to have. And if you have questions about making a soul contract or creating an altar or things that you've witnessed with your ancestors, I invite you to come to the weekly sessions on Thursday and Friday, because we go over all of it. We dig in, and I can talk to you one-on-one. You can come take notes, whatever it is you want to do. Please show up. It's so much fun. But I just wanted to share a couple like do's and don'ts that people tend to ask a lot about, and yeah, just be your amazing self. And hopefully I will see you in one of the sessions. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below. Let me know if this resonated with you, and if there's anything else that you're wanting to learn about, be sure to drop it below in the comments, and myself or someone from my team will make note of it. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.